All right, so hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Physical Therapy Private Practice Secrets of the Top 10%. I am really excited this week. I'm doing another interview, and this week, this interview is with Michelle Collie from Highbar Physical Therapy. And she has a very unique business mantra, very unique business philosophy, purpose, mission statement, all the things that we're looking for today. I think this group is definitely a group you guys all want to listen to and pick up as much information on. You know, we live in a changing society, and this one is already out in front of those changes. And Michelle and I met about a week ago, got to know each other a little bit better, and I'm very impressed. I hope you guys are as well. So, without any further ado, I want to introduce Michelle Collie, and I'll let her tell you about her title. And let's bring us up to speed to where we are today and how we got here, Michelle. I think people are really interested in everyone's backstory a bit.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Brian. And likewise to you, I've always been really impressed with how you're supporting the future of our profession and especially private practices, because to me, they are the heart and the soul of the future of our profession. And, I always love telling this story because my story started on a sheep farm in New Zealand a long, long time ago. It evolved to the place as a 15-year-old girl who tore her ACL and discovered the world of physical therapy. And I think what was interesting for me is at that age, and I hear this from so many other physical therapists, the experience I had with physical therapy helped me truly understand the value of it. I was this jock kid at a really influential time in my life who lost their identity of this athlete. And what my physical therapist did is they didn't just help me get my mobility back and my function back, they helped empower me to understand how my behaviors and what I could do to be the best version of myself. And to me, physical therapy on a bigger scale isn't just about mobility and pain and even function. So much of what we're doing is empowering our patients. It's a very active form of medicine rather than passive. And to truly articulate that value is something we've always struggled with, I believe, as a profession. So, skip forward, came to this country when there was a shortage of physical therapists for a 1 year stint. When I was 8 months pregnant, I acquired a single practice called Performance Physical Therapy that I was the clinic director in, and that was 20 years ago. And from there, I always had this passion about how do we have a practice that truly provides the best care? How do we ensure physical therapists always practice at the top of their license? I grew up in New Zealand where we trained with lots of manual therapy, lots of hands-on. And back in those days, when I moved over here, no one was manipulating or mobilizing patients. So even then, I was sort of pushing the boundaries of what we were supposed to do as physical therapists. So we grew that practice and we grew that practice performance based on the kinds of physical therapists we had, physical therapists who wanted to be the best versions of themselves. And with that, opened up clinics in different towns. We grew, we got to the pandemic. We evolved very much through that time and learned even more the value that we can have on our communities because we flipped to telehealth, made some decisions that not everyone might have agreed with, but we again wanted to be innovative and wanted to really support the communities. And from there, sorry, this story's turned into longer probably than what you expected, Brian. But as I got
That's
to that
fine.
49, I thought to myself, I'm about to turn 50. What's going to happen to performance physical therapy? And what I've seen, and I've been very involved with the with advocacy and with the private practice right through my career, is that there's been so much consolidation of physical therapy, just like many areas of other areas of healthcare. But with that, there has been a lot of commoditization. And commoditization is something that I certainly think hasn't helped the value of the care that we provide and ultimately how we're paid and how we're valued. So with that, we thought, how do we continue to solve this problem? How do we continue to evolve what physical therapy is and how it's valued? And from there, we decided that, yes, we're going to have to grow and make a difference. So We rebranded to a practice called Highbar. We did bring on a financial partner to support us with that growth, and not just from a financial standpoint, but understanding the strategies, understanding how to build an organization that has the stability to be able to continue to offer a product or service and have the same culture that our small practices have. Because so much I see is as a practice grows, a lot of those the level of care we give and the culture of the organization are the things that start to go first in any growing organization. So let's try do it differently. So Highbar now is a multi-clinic practice with locations in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. We have planned significant growth throughout the Northeast and even throughout the entire East Coast. And we're doing this to support our profession, to show that we can provide optimal care and how we deliver that. And we can jump into that and talk about that. Also to look at the kind of place where a physical therapist can work and practice at the top of their license. We call it patoddling. And yes, when we see the amount of churn and we see the amount of vacancies that are there amongst employers, and the new report that just came out from APTA, in fact, I think it came out today in people's inboxes, is that we're still in the Northeast where I am, about 11% vacancy. People are struggling to find those PTs, but I think it truly is because we have to ensure we have the optimal places for people to work. And we also want to be a solution for those like-minded founders who are looking for what's next. How do we continue to grow and help more people and do it in the right way? And how can we potentially come together to do that? All right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Probably said too many things there. I'm going to be quiet now.
No, actually, that was very interesting. And I think it's enlightening for somebody who's, on the outside looking in. They want to definitely know, like, what do you stand for? What do you believe in? And what is the mission of this practice? And it definitely comes across that it's about advancing the profession of physical therapy and helping lift up the quality of life of the people that you do business with. Right. So I got that from our first meeting, and I think you communicated that very well. Let's focus on, and a lot of my audience is or are private practice owners already, looking to grow and expand, scale, expand, or they're at the later part of their career and they're looking at succession planning, or they're at the other extreme and they're startups, right? And then lastly, I have a large public that listens that are in their physical therapy position. They're doing fine, but I like to say they're blissfully discontent. They're not unhappy. They're not miserable. They're just blissfully discontent. They look around and they say to themselves, a snapshot of me today at this role, working at this particular clinic or one of these franchises or corporates or whatever, and a snapshot of me 5 years from now is not going to look much different. Maybe I'm making $5,000 more, maybe 10 if I'm lucky, but my life isn't going to be any different. I'm going to be doing the same thing I'm doing now, same, and it's not that they're miserable. Don't get me wrong. It's just that they start to look at their life and they say, is this it? Is this is this what I should expect for the next 20 years, 30 years? While I have my PT license? I mean, is it becoming a mentor? Is it becoming a senior therapist? Is it becoming a clinical director and stop? I mean, is that what it is? And I think you're offering something to potential private practice owners or existing practice owners that is different. And I want to really touch on what is different, right? So we all know the big players out there, the physios, the select medicals, the USPH, nothing wrong with those models. They are what they are. But Highbar is different, and it came from some humble beginnings, and it held on to this philosophy of getting therapists to practice at the top of their license, which I love the patoddle. But what is it that's so attractive for me to want to consider calling you over at Highbar about coming together? And what does that coming together look like? Is that a partnership? Is that a buyout? Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think a lot of people are probably scratching their heads and wanting to know a little bit more about that.
So let's think about, yes, I'm hearing from you first. Let's touch on the one about the person who owns a practice.
Yeah.
And sort of thinking what next and what is a partnership, what does this relationship look like.
Mm,
Interesting part is we're very early days, which also means there's lots of different opportunities. However, the model that we're really proposing is that different to many of the other groups out there is that when you join with Highbar, you're joining Highbar as your practice. And if you have your own practice, let's say it's called, I don't know, Mickey Mouse Physical Therapy, and that's located somewhere in the Midwest. And you've got this great reputation, you've got awesome therapists, you've created a great reputation. Like the worst thing I could do is go in and change your name to Highbar and paint your clinic orange and shift everyone onto a different EHR, pay you more, but do this. And number one thing is do no harm. We're only partnering or joining with practices that have that similar, like, I want to take care of my people and the community. I've built something that I'm really proud of. So let's hold on to that. What we are there to do from an integration standpoint is figure out, where do you need help? If you could grow faster, if you had more PTs, we've got a solution for that. If you could grow more by having some capital to open some more de novos, we can help with that. If you need help understanding where to open those, or you need help with business development, or maybe you don't like your EHR, those are the areas that will help with. So absolutely, we will integrate, but we've got to be super mindful of what we're integrating to ensure that we do no harm, but allow you in your practice to grow and help more people and do it in the right way. Now, we'll offer you professional development. We have a residency and all of those things, but certainly don't want anyone to think that they suddenly lose their identity and their brand. Now, it's
mm,
still part of something bigger. So we're certainly not saying, oh, you own part of your Mickey Mouse practice and maybe some of Highbar. You're actually under one umbrella. And why do we
mm,
do that? It's because you're part of, we want everyone to collaborate and work together. I really feel strongly that we don't want a founder going like, well, I only want equity here and here, so I'm only motivated to help these clinics. Like, no, we're all in this together. We're trying to come up with
mm.
solutions. We're trying to learn from each other. That supports the financial side of it, the risk management, but it's kind of like we're all here to actually help each other and evolve and grow and do no harm. So from
So
a
it's like strength in, I'm sorry, it's like strength in numbers, right? Instead of having everybody be on their own little separate island, you're all together.
Yeah, strength in numbers, which means it's really important to build the trust and build the culture, because we don't want to partner with someone in some other part of the country who's like, oh, we don't really trust them to do a good job. Like, we've got to
Mm.
really collaborate and build a strong, strong culture that's built on a clear strategic plan. So that's where I hope is, for some folks, this may be really, really appealing. For other folks, they may be like, no way. But why I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing it is when I was 49 and I was like, hey, where am I going to go? What am I going to do now? I couldn't find the right partner. I couldn't find a solution that what I thought was the best for what was performance physical therapy. I was worried about the damage. I was worried about what it would do to what would happen to the quality. I was worried about the community that we'd served and the PTs that we had. Hence why we thought, all right, I guess we'll try and fix this and solve this on our own. But hopefully now this is a solution for other folks who maybe think like I do and like our team does.
That makes total sense. So just so I have it right, let's say my name's Brad and I've got ABC therapy, 2 locations, 8 therapists, and I come to you and I'm like, I've been doing this for 10 years. There's day-to-day struggles. My kids are older. How can we come together? I'm assuming I would be selling my practice to Highbar, and then I would be taking some shares in Highbar, and I would be able to stay on with a salary and continue to practice my passion without having to get myself caught up in all the stuff about the business, admin, marketing stuff, billing, stuff that I don't really enjoy, but I can really just be that chief operating officer and just really have the resources, have the support, have the financial backing from corporate Highbar to actually build my practice to what I've always envisioned it. Is that kind of the fit?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I
great.
think you did it great. Yeah.
Yeah, great, great. There's a lot of folks out there like that who've gone through a lot of change over the last 3 years. As we know, we all know what that is. And they're at a point where they're like, you know what? I realize I just don't have to do this alone. I realize I can really partner with somebody. I can really, sell my shares and be absorbed and then be a part of something bigger. When somebody comes and they want to be a part of something bigger, what do you tell them that is? How is that different? What is special about High Bar that they're not going to get somewhere else? If they were to, I don't know, the USPH model, I think is pretty much 75-25. They buy you out, you still have 25%, you get paid out on the back end and you're working, you pay a management fee, and kind of feels like you go, nothing about USPH, but I'm just saying, kind of feels like you became a high paid employee again. I'm not getting the sense that's how your people feel.
No, I think we really need to make a difference for the sake of our profession. So
Mhm.
I am really interested in finding different ways to do things. So, and USPT isn't doing this, I'm not saying that. There's a really simple way of making more money, and that is tell your PTs to see more patients. That is
Mm.
the thing that I am the most against, because fee for service and how we've been doing things and constantly nickel and diming over what you're coding and how many visits in an episode of care. I understand that's where our health system is right now. But if we stay like that, private practice PT, I don't understand how it will even be around. So what we're trying to do is really pilot, look at the real economic value. And I love the paper that just came out from APTA in regard to true economic value. Really look at alternative payment models, do it in a very strategic and data-driven way. And
Mhm.
again, with size, we've got more opportunities to look at different kind of value-based care models. And we have a number of those pilots actually going on right now. And maybe we're lucky because we're in little but mighty Rhode Island, and we've been here a long time. So we have some different kinds of payment models going on that allow our clinicians to truly practice at the top of their license, which doesn't mean like, oh, patient Brian comes in with low back pain, how many visits can you see this patient for? And maybe you care
Mhm.
about their satisfaction and possibly about their photo or their oswestry or what are outcomes. But what we want to know is look at downstream impact. We want to look at actually how do we integrate digital or not, synchronous and asynchronous, in-person care. I don't know the right combinations, but empowering our PTs to actually figure it out. Like these are doctors, a physical therapist. And even there's a new book actually just out by, I don't have it here, by Gray Cook, and he does a nice job. It's called The Business of Movement. But it gives it the example, and I'll jump to a clinical example. You get the patient who comes in with shoulder pain and stiffness, and as PTs, we want to mobilize it and dry needle it, give them some exercise and how many visits. But let's stand back and actually practice at the top of the license and realize that the fact that that person smokes cigarettes, eats a shitty diet, and hasn't slept in 3 days, you may be better off just telling them to have a good night's sleep, drink some water, and actually have a healthy diet. Now, it doesn't mean we're suddenly becoming nutritionists and psychiatrists or psychologists, but we're
Mhm.
behaving as doctors of MS case specialists. And that's how we're expecting all of our clinicians to behave and truly show that value. And not just based on the fact that many say, oh, you don't get paid for that at the moment. Well, you can tie it into the care. There are ways to, but ultimately making sure we're practicing in this way and really looking at not just the short term, but the downstream costs, whether you're working with ACOs, referral sources, with insurance companies, with employers. There's all different ways, but let's look at the ways so we can come up with solutions that support us in the future. So Highbar, that's the part that excites me, and coming together with a larger group to be able to do that. When people say, oh, there's a group up in the Northeast that is able to figure out ways to take care of our clinicians and our patients and do it all different ways, that's exciting. So those blissfully disconnect PTs who are like, yeah, here I am doing my thing. Maybe in 5 years
Mhm.
I'll earn $5,000 more. Like, I would love them to be like, no, yeah, yes, we want financial opportunity, but at the same time, they're like, we're actually figuring out solutions to the healthcare
Mhm.
system that will not only help us now, but will have a big impact in the future.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I love this. I love the message there. And, you know, moving away from the potential owners to clinicians, what are, find a need and fill it, find a problem and solve it. And your solution to this is really mentoring and encouraging and motivating therapists to practice at the top 10% of their license. That's why our podcast is called Physical Therapy Secrets of the Top 10%. We are parallel in our missions here, parallel in our messages. What can you say that you do? Just give one or two examples of what you do that does encourage or does pull off the transformation from being a good, mediocre, satisfactory physical therapist to now being somebody who's exemplary, now being somebody who is, practicing at the top of their license.
I think so much of it tying in, we shouldn't call them soft skills because they're harder, but tying in that leadership, communication, and all of those things right from day one. And even we
Mhm.
actually do it with our students. So even their student curriculum, it makes sure that all the mentoring with students, the mentorship program that we have with new hires, yes, we have an accredited residency, but that acts as a foundation to so much of the other professional development that isn't just around how you dry needle or evaluate a shoulder, but how you communicate and empower a patient to take responsibility and be part of that, be an active participant, and how your actions and how you behave changes that. Pulling in the lifestyle medicine, pulling in plenty of other different healthcare providers so they can gain understanding and respect and the ability to be part of that team. So I think integrating all of that in with our with our professional development is something that we've found to be really impactful for, so that a clinician from day one understands this is how I behave as a doctor of physical therapy, rather than thinking, oh, I hear it so often, oh, I'm just a PT, I can do these things. So I'm not sure if I answered your question very well, but I think it's a very integrative approach to just doubling down on on how you behave constantly, and then celebrating, like celebrating the win, celebrating the Google reviews, celebrating the clinical outcomes, not how many visits you saw in a week. That's a result of having compliant patients who are happy to come see you and you want to help them. Like, celebrate the things that actually drive the behaviors that will support your organization.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I muted myself there for a second, but you're absolutely right. It's about investing in the people around you, right? It's investing in them both personally and professionally. I always feel like personally, you have to have an infrastructure that's acknowledging people for who they are. I see you. I acknowledge you for your good communication. I acknowledge you for your high level of confront. I acknowledge you for your creative entrepreneurial creative spirit, and you're trying to look at the long game. You're trying to play the infinite game here, not the finite game. There's always a better tomorrow. And it seems to me like you guys have systems built into your infrastructure that encourage that actually incentivize and motivate on that end. And then on the validation side, you're not just focused on the statistics of production efficiency, more units, more patients, more units, more patients, but rather validating them for their outcomes, validating them for their success stories, validating them for the referral testimonials, validating them for building the brand in the community. And I'm putting a lot of that out there for all you guys listening, because we did spend some time together talking before this. And as you know, my podcasts are never scripted, but I want you all to hear that, because can't always get it in a 30, 45-minute podcast, but you should hear that Michelle and I talked at length about that, like how to become a differentiator. Well, her message to me was to become a differentiator in this market is about investing in the people. It's about investing in our therapists so that they can in turn pay that forward with their interaction with the patients. The patient's not just a shoulder, they're not just a knee to them. Am I restating, repackaging that right, Michelle?
Yeah, you did a beautiful job of that.
Oh, good. Great. Great. I wanted to really get that out there because that's not normally what I hear. I normally hear a lot about practice management and the 64 key statistics, and our numbers are this, and our net revenues are that, and our growth rate is that. That's all fine and good. But I believe, like you believe, and again, I'm going back to our earlier conversation. If you do right by others and you do right by everybody, if you're in the business of investing in other people's success, that in turn will breed to your success. That in turn will fuel your own personal and professional success. And I, here at Meg Business Management, that's what we're all about. Let me ask you a more specific question. I'm a big fan, and this may you I don't mean to put you on the spot, but this may or may not be something you have. But there's such a thing as called a learning management system, and that's what Meg is. Meg Academy is a learning management system. People buy, they become a member of Meg. They get 24-hour Slack channel. They get our file vault. They get all of our curriculum of how to be a good CEO, how to be a good personnel director, how to do what you just said, investing in those soft personnel management skills, how to be a good marketer, good HR person, good pediatric leader. So we have that college, if you will, that MBA like program, if you will, specifically to physical therapists. So we're investing in making somebody a better person. I want to live a better, I'm 55. I want to be a better 55-year-old and 54-year-old. And I want to see that in my staff. Do you guys have an LMS? Do you have a learning management system that you use with your, how do you do it? What is the mechanism in which you're doing that by? I mean, we all agree on the philosophy and we all agree on the mission, but share with the audience a little bit about the mechanics of how you guys are pulling that off.
Yeah, we do use an LMS as well. And with that, we
Okay,
created our own series of videos and content. So absolutely
great,
digital component to all of those things.
great,
We're
great,
continuing to evolve those. So we have a specific leadership program and management specifically for non-clinical folks. We have
great,
one for the next level who want to be clinic directors. We have one for our faculty who may be more like clinical, however, still really important they get the leadership side. So we continue to evolve those. And what's interesting to me is the evolution of these things, of how they evolve over time, because many of the lessons, although fundamentally the same, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, updating the stories and updating the examples so that people really, see are not only they're educated and entertained by many of these things. Also,
right,
yes, and I think meeting people where they're at. So we'll have book clubs and book reviews. We'll have other people doing one-on-one mentoring. We document all of this. We have all of our, we call it Highbar reviews, but ensuring we measure the journey that our folks are taking. You mentioned something earlier about professional and personal. I like to say that the destination may be professional, but the journey is personal. So respect,
oh, well said.
yeah, there's these professional things, but it's still a journey for everyone. And whether you're 55 or whether you're 21, we all want to continue to grow and evolve. And I think for us too, our purpose is to empower people to feel better, move freely, and live fully, which you can see how that relates to patients. But to me, it relates completely to the journey of our staff as well. We want to help
Absolutely.
that. So yes, we have
Yeah.
the structure and we have the processes there, as well as that strategy with the culture mingled into it all to support the kinds of behaviors to ensure that this is this well-oiled machine that doesn't fall apart as we grow and evolve.
Yeah, that sounds so much like us. That's why we hit it off when we first met. I mean, how many of us, I mean, listening, those of you listening, have you guys, is there anyone out there who hasn't said to themselves, man, if only I could find a time machine and go back to the 21-year-old me with all the knowledge I have today as the 55-year-old me. Could I bring that back to my 21-year-old me and live the next 30 years? Well, you know what? It's kind of funny. You kind of can. You kind of can do that, but you do it vicariously through others. You do, if you care enough, impart that knowledge you have into that 24, 25, 27-year old who's working with you. Don't look at them as a tool. Don't look at them as a worker or a staff member or an employee necessarily. Look at them as an opportunity. Look at them as an opportunity for you to pay it forward in this young person's professional and personal career, such that they can live the life that they've always envisioned for themselves. And when they feel that attraction, they feel that commonality with you, they're never going to want to go anywhere else. I mean, I have like very low turnover in my administrative rank and file. I mean, we're over 115 employees in 34 different states. And the only way you get there and you have that deep of a bench is by retaining people because they want to, not because you have something over on them or you gave them some shares or something like that, but because they want to. And that's what I hear from you. Like, I can only imagine how much people are priding themselves for getting in the door and being a part of your bigger organization, both clinically and ownership wise, both on both levels, right? I believe most of your clinics you've acquired with the owners, they're still practicing owners, I would assume.
Absolutely. And you bring up a great point. And in some ways you make it sound really simple, but as someone said to me, simple doesn't mean easy.
Right.
Be able to bring like yourself, bring you to always have that mindset of being like, how do I, just like the other leaders and managers, bring my best version of myself to this organization every day? Because it's my responsibility and my opportunity to help this next generation and help these team members be the best
Yeah.
version of them myself, and not show up and be a grumpy asshole and say, just see more patients or we're going to go out of business, or I'll pay
Right.
you more if you do. That's not inspiring, and that doesn't make them feel good. And not that we're just trying to, it's all about touch and feel. No, there is responsibility and there is accountability. But as a leader, you got to show up and you got to be the best version of yourself every day. And if you can't do that, like yeah, take care of yourself and figure out how to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that message. And for all of you listening, you're saying to yourself, wow, you guys are really pointing out some differentiating factors here between Highbar and what I've heard out there. If you've had a clinic for 5, 10, 15 years and you are ready to look at your succession plan, you are ready to move into that next chapter of your life, I think you have to contact Highbar. I really do. And I'm not being a spokesman for you or something like that. That's not my role here. But I just think from the messaging we've talked about, I think you just owe it to yourself as an owner to really consider, have a serious consideration about this option, because opportunities are the only thing one can afford you. Whether you take advantage of them and you capitalize on them, that's on you. For all of you listening, that's on you. You can talk about it, but until you're beat, there's a scale of change, right? There's a scale in life of change. There's this, oh, I hope things can be different. That's called a hope for change. Oh, I'm hoping for difference. I'm hoping things get better. And then you get to the point where you're like, man, things really need to change. Like, things need to get better. And then you move to the final stage, which is when I like to get my calls, because after this call, I've got 2 owners calling me from somewhere around the country, and we're going to have a 1-hour practice assessment together, totally free, and something I enjoy doing all the time. And in that practice assessment, I'm like poking at them, pulling at them. Like, are you at the point, not at hope for change, not at need for change,
Yeah.
but demanding change? Are you beating your fist on the desk and you're like, I need to live a different life. I need to be, and here you guys are always going to be an option for me to flow to you, because I think you guys would align with the purpose and goals and mission of them personally and professionally. And that's what people are looking for. This work-life balance got a bad slant because of the millennials, because it just was like, oh, a bunch of lazy people want to get a bunch of money for not, because they always skip over the word work and they jump to life balance, right? You got to get work in the middle of life balance. So it's good that you say this isn't all about food kind of stuff. You have a learning management system that's going to enhance the ability of people. At least with our learning management system, I assume yours is the same. Ours follows the pattern of physical therapy school. Education, that's what a podcast, book, YouTube, it educates you, epiphanies, gives you enlightenment, it gives you a bright idea. education. Then lab, when you were in PT school, you went from lecture to lab. Lab was duplication. Oh, I got to duplicate what I learned in lecture. Well, we do that in our LMS through quizzes and assignments. Then you go to application. Well, just like in PT school, you went to lecture, lab, affiliation. Our LMS is lecture, a lot of new information, quizzes, assignments, things to show us that you duplicated what you learned. And then we go into role play. You got to pass a role play. You got to role play the application of what you learned. You got to do it 5 times over until it's muscle memory. And you could a disgruntled employee, conflict resolution, stuff like that. It without me knowing, it seems to me you guys are doing the same thing. I hope so. I don't know, but maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because I think the people listening are saying, tell me about how it's actually going to be different for me. And I think if you're doing something like that, that's really different than what I see the other big players doing.
Yeah, I think I think I said it to someone earlier today. I was like, read this book. I think you'll love it. And they're like, great. And I said, don't actually read it. I said, you can choose to read it just for entertainment because it's fun to read, listen, or however you want to digest it. But then we're going to talk about it. And then we're going to figure out how to put it into action. Because yes, you can be entertained. It's good to be entertained. But, you know, and for this particular person in this particular book, it was something that I really believe they, you know, here, digest this. Tell me what you think. We're going to talk about it. We're going to have a discussion. And now, next, we're going to do is you're going to put it, and we're going to then talk about it again. And I'm going to give you feedback. So, same philosophies is like, it's not just about digesting information or even just role playing it, but actually putting it into how you behave and then being measured on it and being accountable for it.
Yeah.
And that this is, I think too, it's part of the agreement or the culture you have. You know, this is you're going to take accountability for how you show up and behave. Yeah, I'm going to learn this and I'm going to become better and more confident at conflict resolution, or how to communicate with a patient who doesn't show up, whatever the thing is. But you got to put it into action lots and lots and lots of times.
I'll tell you, I usually hesitate putting people on the spot, but I've never hesitated putting you on the spot, because I know from talking earlier, like we so are the same DNA strand. You know, when we here at Meg, we don't give a single employee a reading assignment of any sort, whether it be listen to this podcast or watch this YouTube video or read this book or read this chapter, without the following instructions. Read this. Let's just pick that one. Read this chapter. You have to then report back to me with a deadline. We give you a deadline to get it done by. And then you have to report back to me with A, what did you learn as a result of what you read? And B, what are you going to do different on your job, on your post, as a result of what you learned? We never give a reading assignment without A, what did you learn? And B, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to operate differently with it? Because now people are reading for purpose. They're reading for content. They're reading to make a change. They're not just reading for the enlightenment of it. Consultants, I am not. We are not consultants. You know, selling a bunch of bright ideas is worthless to me. Selling skill development is everything. And I love that about Highbar. You guys are so focused on that skill. So for those of you, whether you're a therapist and you're looking for changing your position, you know, seek out a Highbar clinic and see what kind of experience you're going to have there. And if you're a practice owner looking at that succession plan and you're looking for that next move, not a lot of people can afford to buy your clinic. These guys are backed with some capital. They can definitely come in and give you a fair price and treat you fairly all the way through. I mean, that is the experience I've had in talking with Michelle. And I can't say that about everybody that's out there. It's a dog eat dog world, everybody. And there's a lot of reasons to be scared and be fearful that you're not going to be treated fairly. And I can honestly say the ethics level here is you know, second to none. So you guys should feel comfortable with that. If you've been a long follower, you know I would never have somebody on my podcast I didn't believe in myself. So that's that. Let's round the corner here and bring it home. I think we've talked a lot about Highbar's features on the professional level as a practice owner. I think we've now covered the span of, you know, what does that mean to me as a therapist if I were to join one of the related clinics, Highbar clinics, but what does it mean to a patient? Like, your outcomes is what this is all about, right? Good ownership, good leadership, good management leads to good therapists, good practice, good application, which should result in great, high quality patient care. As you heard me talk about, and all my audience knows, We are not interested in the fee-for-service business model, more patients, more units, more patients, more units. We think that is dead. You got to throw that box out. There's no band-aiding that. The income squeeze is crushing people. You have to go to a progressive PT practice model. And I'm not putting words in Michelle's mouth. That is our model. That is what we stated. I shared this with her in our last conversation. That has to incorporate, pay for performance. That has to incorporate advanced technology, both clinically and administratively. We believe it has to include outsourcing everything you possibly can, virtual front desk, billing, credentialing, because you should only be paying for what you're doing clinically inside your clinic. Now, that's me answering the question for our business, our direction, our philosophy. I want Michelle to answer it for hers, because she's going to net result on patient care results. Meg is going to net result on a flourishing, prospering practice owner and practice team that then gets the patient care. So we're like a secondary bank. We're not the primary bank. We're like there. Michelle's the primary bank. So Michelle, how can you describe, because I just described our progressive PT practice models, how we're pulling it off. How can you describe to the listeners how you're getting those high-end results with the patients? Because that's what it all boils down to.
Yeah. Do you mean from the patient's perspective or from a financial?
Both. But patient perspective, because if without the patient's perspective, the clinic's not going to do well, financially at any level. But the therapists have to be winning, the patients have to be winning, and the community has to be winning. We've been talking a lot about how the therapy owners are winning and how the therapists are winning. Let's bring it home to how are the patients winning at Highbar?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, what I expect our patients to walk away with is 5-star reviews, loving the experience they're having, not only from a customer service standpoint and their ease of access to care, but also how they're treated as a person and as they're empowered as a person. So when you come to Highbar, I would expect a patient to say, and they say it like, instead of saying like, yeah, I got physical therapy, yeah, I had physical therapy. No, I worked with this physical therapist and I learned how to do this. Every visit I had, whether it was in person or not, I actually walked away nodding my head going like, I feel better as a person because I learned something. So I wasn't just a number. I wasn't just a knee. I wasn't just a disease or an injury. I was a person who is a runner and really wants to run again. And that clinician is working to ensure that I can do what I want to do now and in the future. So again, I think for our patients, we've really made sure that we have an integrated approach to care, not just how, but also, yes, whether the combination of, yes, by far the majority's in person, but we continue to look at where and how digital will or could play a role, only if it optimizes the patient experience and the outcomes and proves to be more efficient in different ways. So patients should walk away. They should walk away and be able to go back to their doc and say, oh, I'm sleeping better. I learned this from the PT. I also know I don't need a referral. I know how to call up my PT anytime. So really developing that relationship with our patients. When it comes to how we deliver that, we're constantly looking at those levers. What stuff should we outsource? What stuff do we do in-house? What processes? What structure? And as we grow and evolve, and as we work with different partners in different parts of the country and practices, these are the things we keep looking at. Because maybe we've got this practice that we're working with who's in another part of the country that we find it is better that they have a virtual check-in and do these different things. That's great. But we may find in the neighborhoods that we live in Rhode Island that when we ask our patients or when we pilot that, that doesn't work because it doesn't add to their experience and there's some other hiccups. So I think too, for us, it's constantly looking at the levers that will impact the patient experience, the levers that will impact how our PTs are operating, and then the financial impact. And I don't have it here, I have a jigsaw puzzle. It's like, how do you put that puzzle together, but stay curious and keep looking at it every 6 months and not get complacent and just think, oh, this is how we do it, we're not changing. You have to keep looking at all those levers. That's when the numbers come in. That's when you can play games. And that's when you get surprised because you're like, whoa, if I suddenly use a virtual check-in, these are all of the positive. It's not just like I saved money on a front desk person. There's all these other
Mhm.
things it does, but you've got to understand all those data points to know which levers to pull when. So I'm not, again, I don't know if I answered that very well, but I think it's, as an owner or leader, just staying really curious to all the stakeholders. And I think as a stakeholder is our employees, our patients, our profession, the people who have ownership, like being aware of all those stakeholders and being aware of all of that, all of those measures and how it all fits together as a puzzle, and being really curious to how you move it so that everyone wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I ran my clinic for 18 years, and I'll tell you what mattered most to me was that net promoter score. What does the patient think about their experience? How does the patient feel about coming back again if care was needed? Secondly, I made it a rule. I made it my life's mission to make sure that all my employees, if I were to tap them on the shoulder and I were to say, what is the product we're producing here? What is the valuable final product of the accumulation of all of our efforts, our front desk, our techs, our marketing team, our billing team, our insurance verification officer team, our clinicians? What is, and if they couldn't say that back to me, memorized, wrote verbatim, that was a flunk and they had to go back and study it. And it was all patients arriving on time as scheduled throughout their entire duration of care, willing to come back if care was needed, willing to tell a friend, family member, and doctor about the superlative experience they had at our clinic. That is the valuable final product of an outpatient physical therapy practice. And if you don't truly know that in your heart of hearts, and that's not truly in front of you all the time, like a greyhound on a racetrack, it's all about the rabbit. That is what this is all about. Because you can get stuck in the weeds, you can get stuck in all the nuances, all the particulars. I think Highbar, breeds that mission of we're going to take that burden away from you as much as we can. We're going to take those administrative burdens away. We're going to take those stresses away because, and I'll say part of what we teach to get owners to be the best owner they can, to get managers to be the best managers, therapists to be the best therapists, is we say when you're stressed, your adrenal glands kicked in. And when your adrenals kick in, your empathy goes down because you go to flight or fight, you go to pro survival. So everybody else becomes a diminishing return. They're not as important to you. So if you're working in a stressful clinical environment, for those of you staff therapists, then you're not being the full you. You're not being the real you. You're not living the real empathetic you. So when you work at a clinic that has 5 division structure, the 64 key statistics, all the managing systems of operation, standard operating protocols, and does go to innovation, innovative advanced clinical technology, innovative outsourcing of administrative tasks and tools. I've heard so many people, and Michelle said it in a fair and balanced way, and I totally appreciate what she says. People have apprehension about a virtual front desk. But the funny thing is, we're all comfortable on Zoom. I would say that this conversation right now is as live as any. I mean, we're as live as ever. I can't touch you, but other than that, we're as live as anything. So, people have this apprehension, but 1 month in, they're like, oh my gosh, my patients love it. They love talking to somebody from Iowa or Nebraska while I'm in Rhode Island. It's so interesting to them after a while. And the funny thing about that, as a practice owner, you get to realize, like, wow, I can only pick a front desk person from my zip code. How many talented people that I have that I want to invest in and retain long term in my zip code, when a company like ours, we pull from the nation. So we can pull the best and the brightest and actually give you the highest caliber person. And we train them, orient them, we pay all the bills on them and all that. So I think your group is innovative and they're outward thinking. There are certain markets where that may not fly at all. And I'm going to pull and or I'm in a clinic and I have a rock star at my front desk. I would never replace that person. You're not going to change that. Right. So I love the fact that you're like not an all in none person. You're totally willing to look at what happens. And I think that's what's going to be the success of your business right here. And I'm going to end this with you guys. I have forever been recruited by the big players of this nation. I won't go list the name. I don't want to come across like I'm name dropping all that. But every time they sit down with me, it never turns out to be a fit. And the reason why it never turns out to be a fit is because I sit with them and I say, you all got to change what you're doing. And you got to look at it like you're a cruise ship coming to port at these different islands. And each island is one of the clinics that you own, and give them some autonomy, give them some rope, give them some uniqueness, give them some character, support them on the things they need, give them the cargo, give them the ships, utilities, give them the supplies that they need. Be there on the HR side, be there on the policy side, be there on the marketing, recruiting side, the things, the difficult things, maybe do the billing plan, but give them if they want to wear Jersey Friday, Jersey Friday, they want it to be Jean Friday, Jean Friday, let them have that culture and the uniqueness. And it just seems to me like you guys already get that. Like you have 19 some clinics, you're probably going to have 39 in another 24 months or something, but you're not doing it, turning them all into little McDonald's. You're not turning them to all the identical little igloos. You are taking, I mean, the whole reason why you're on this podcast is because we totally see eye to eye. You're taking all this unique advanced training and you're saying, now run with this. Now paint the colors the way you want to. You don't have to be orange and white like you can share and keep your own unique. That's what makes you special. I mean, you're obviously successful or we wouldn't have acquired you. Why am I going to strip you of that success? I mean, am I saying that right? I want to summarize this conversation. I hope I'm doing you justice.
You are doing a beautiful job. I love it because that's why I created this, to be different, to be just like that.
Mm-hmm.
When I was trying to figure out the future of performance, I didn't want something we'd created that was so awesome. Like, why would someone want to mess with that? Like, build on it.
Right.
And there's lots of
Right.
other folks out there with that. And that's what makes private practice PT so cool. That's what
Yeah.
makes it the bread and butter, the foundation, I believe, of our whole physical therapy world. So we've got to take care of those community cultures and what makes private practice, which starts off in a single clinic, so special. And now let it just bloom, and don't come and crush it down with your cruise ship.
That's
Not
right. Don't try to make everything look like every other McDonald's, right? Don't try to make everything be, that's what the big boys want because they have their systems, they have their way of doing things. That's crazy to me. It just strips the individualism away from everything. So Michelle, I'm going to let you think about your website and your email that I want you to say to everybody so you can get ready to tell them about what email they can reach out to and what website. And of course, we're going to have that in the links below. But I do want to end with this. For those of you that are listening, if you are a private practice owner currently and you are growing that practice, this could be a very good exit strategy for you. This could be symbiotic. This could be a very symbiotic relationship. And I want you to really think about that. And for those of you who are practicing and you want to just become a better practitioner, a better manager, this is a super opportunity for that as well. And last but not least, for those of you who are, in the community as a patient, or you guys know family members or friends that need care, seek out a Highbar clinic. I think you're going to be well served. I'm going to say this too. At the end of the day, if we're not striving to be different, if we're not striving to improve and do things in a way that hasn't been done, then we're not trying. I love her sign in the back. Don't be afraid to fail. Be afraid not to try. That's totally that's totally up my alley as well. So I'm going to leave it with that because I think this is truly innovative. And I think you're doing the right thing. And if we can collaborate and work together more and support each other, I'm all for it, Michelle. I definitely want to forge a stronger relationship between our group and your group because I think people are needing that financial support and the administrative support that you have. But most of all, everybody, here's my parting message, and I'll let Michelle tell you how you can reach her. The goal is for you to live the life you've always envisioned for yourself. That's really what we're talking about here. You need a soul search for yourself. Are you currently living the life you've always envisioned for yourself? And are we doing our job to advance the profession of physical therapy? That's on us. That's on people like Michelle and I. But what's on you is not to be afraid to make a change in your life, not to be afraid to confront the reality that you may be living a life of blissfully discontent. And now you got to demand for a change. When you're ready to demand for a change, there's people like Michelle and I out there that I can teach you and educate you on how to do it yourself, grow that practice, and then, work with Michelle and become a part of her network, or do it now. So that's it. That's my parting message. Michelle, what can you share with people so they can best reach you guys?
You can reach us or check out our website, highbarhealth.com. You can reach me by email, mcollie, say that like the dog, mcollie, COLLIE, at highbarhealth.com. Text me, 401-952-4516. Like, I actually love nothing more than having conversations, whether you want to be part of Highbar or not. Like, if you're a PT who wants to help our profession and help us evolve, like, I don't actually care. Well, I shouldn't say I don't care if you join with Highbar, but even if not, like, if I can help you, if we can all help be better together and have the courage to make choices, even those choices are hard, to be the best versions of ourselves so we can help more people. It's really fulfilling work, and I'm grateful for the opportunities that I have. And Brian, I've just loved our conversation. I really look forward to lots more conversations and how we can collaborate more to help our mighty profession.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm very fortunate and blessed that you're on my podcast. I know there's a million things you could be doing, and you're spending your time here with me, helping our public live a better life. And so I really do appreciate that. For those of you listening, it's up to you. We can't force your hand. We're here to help you. Our success is your success. That's the easiest way I can put it. So I'm going to end off. We've talked long enough, and I hope you guys have walked away with some real tips for professional success and some personal growth ideas from this conversation. As always, I want you to start each and every day expecting to do well. That's the only way you're going to do well. You got to expect it first. Take care, everybody.